I'm your host, TaSheena Braxton, and I am on a mission to disrupt the industry standard that fancy titles make leaders and teaching my clients how to become leaders and get their own seats at the table. Every week, I will explore a topic that impacts women of color. I will unpack the topic and provide learning so that you can feel equipped to step into leadership. I went from laid off to an entry-level job to a mid-level multiple six figures role where I wasn't the highest on the org chart, but I was able to sit in rooms with CEOs, CFOs, and CMOs without a fancy title. As a mom of 4, a wife, and the eldest daughter of 6, I know what it means to lead in every aspect of your life and to be able to translate that into the workplace. Welcome to the Leadership Beyond the Title podcast. So glad to have you here. Now let's get into it. Hello. Hi, y'all. Welcome back to another episode on the Leadership Beyond the Title podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. I am recording this on a rainy San Francisco day. And I am trying to get over a cold that has had me just a little bit more concerned than usual because my breathing has been way off. So I'm hoping that I'm not breathy on this podcast. And now that I've said that, you're probably going to be paying attention to it. But I know there are some respiratory things that are going around. And I think that it has caught up to me in a way that has been I just don't know. So I'm trying to get back together and get my health back to the way that it should be. I have been running this Vicks humidifier in my house, but I don't know if it's helpful or not. So y'all let me know. Are there some old remedies that I can use or to help me? I just know that the older I get, the harder I get hit with a cold, or the cold just really gets me. So I just need to get my stuff all the way together. But anyways, today's episode is about the types of stories that every leader should know how to tell. So storytelling is something that is important for leaders because it is the way that you build followers and the way that you will have any influence. When you can connect on a deeper level with those that you are leading, you will build trust faster. You will inspire people where they want to take action with you and simply communicate the ideas you have in a simple way. So I always use the phrase, can you explain it so that a 5-year-old understands it? Storytelling helps you do this. And it is not just helpful if you are leading people, but it is also helpful if you need to have a conversation with a senior leader and you need to communicate your accomplishments, or maybe you're in a market to find a new job. Being a storyteller will help you speak to recruiters so that they walk away actually remembering who you are. So if you are wanting to have any influence and impact this year, the skill of storytelling is something that you are going to have to learn. So let's talk about why stories matter. I want to first address this from a scientific lens of sorts. And no, I am not a scientist at all. But stories stimulate the part of our brain that is associated with emotions. This is called the limbic system. When we start to feel connected to the stories we are being told, and in some ways, when the story is told right, it will make us feel like we are right there in that story. We'll feel the warmth and the coziness and just cuddly and the connection inside of us. Have you ever felt that way where it's wow, that story just moves you? And we start to feel so connected to the other person that's telling the story, and we connect with them deeply. And that is why storytelling is such an amazing method of moving people. When you want to grab someone's heartstrings, or if you can grab someone's heartstrings, you bring them to you, and they want to follow your vision. They want to be a part of the story, and they want to be a part of something great. So connecting to emotions is the first reason why storytelling truly matters. But storytelling or stories also align people to a shared language. Now, because this is Black History Month, I want to share an example of how stories were impactful in the time of slavery. Storytelling has helped the enslaved people, or it did help enslaved people, preserve culture. But not only preserve their culture, but their identity, their history. It helped them to provide community. It helped pass down traditions and pass down information, and literally was a means of resistance because the stories were being told in a way that was oftentimes coded language for how to take action. Put another way, it was how to escape. And if you have ever heard of the griot, this is the person who was responsible for preserving the history and traditions so that Black people wouldn't forget where they came from, they wouldn't forget who they are, and this would also provide direction on where to go, where to meet up next. The griot was so important, and just the ability to name this person tells you that the storyteller was important. Enslaved people also had what they called hush harbors, where they could meet in secret. And this is where they told the stories, they practiced their religion, and they didn't have to worry about slaveholders seeing them. So stories have been critical to the Black experience because we were banned from reading, but our stories were always being able to be passed down verbally. And if you talk to any Black person today, it's one of the reasons why some of us are able to follow our genealogy, because we kept it alive through storytelling. I remember sitting at the feet of my great grandmother and my grandparents hearing those stories, and those were the stories that I will never forget. So if you want to align people to a shared language, tell stories. So now that we understand why I believe stories are so impactful, I want to share with you the 3 types of stories that I have found that every leader, no matter your level in the organization or whether it is leading personally or professionally, you should know how to tell. The first type of story is your identity story. The second is the transformation story. And the third is the future story. So being a storyteller is something that I never knew the importance of or the impact that it could have until I was exposed and had access to the upper level of the organization. When you are in an entry-level role, which I was for a very long time, you just don't get exposed to these things. But what I did see was long drawn out meetings that no one knew what the hell was talked about, and meeting notes that was longer than 2 pages that was never read. And I know that because a lot of times I actually had to do those meeting minutes. And then there were action items that sat untouched because no one was specifically assigned to it, nor did they really understand what it meant and how to execute on it. When I started to hear senior leaders put an emphasis on storytelling, there was still a little knowledge gap on what that meant. And in turn, the translation for most people in the organization was what you've probably heard: death by PowerPoint. There was like people making tons of slides and there was tons of data on it. And they thought they was sharing a story and it was coherent and people can follow it and people understood it. But it actually was so hard to comb through that it became a job on top of another job. It just wasted more time. When I went full-time in my coaching business, I started working with a lot of people that wanted to get new jobs. And that was trying to understand and learn how to position themselves differently than others. They literally had to learn this. And then what happens, because I know there's a lot of people that are listening to this right now, and I know this is you, what happens is you immediately go to your resume and cover letter, and you think, this is the story I want to tell. This is how I can communicate this information. And then there's this push to make it so freaking perfect that it sometimes doesn't land for the recruiter anyway. And it's very subjective, which is why I'm always advocating for relationships over resumes. But I digress. But I remember when I had to interview for this role that I wanted, and I remember looking at every single line of the job description and strategizing on how I could communicate how my skills align or translated into those. And so what I did was I put all those lines on the job description on the whiteboard. I pulled out sticky notes, little Post-it stickies, and I wrote the moments in my career where there was either a project, a job responsibility, or a task, or some accomplishment that I did that aligned to the different things on the job description. So for instance, if something said like being able to multitask, what I would do is I would say, okay, these are the areas in my career where I've had to do a lot of multitasking. These were the accomplishments, and I would just put those phrases on a sticky note. Very simple at the beginning. And when I was doing this, I realized, and a light bulb went off for me, and I realized that telling stories in an interview is brilliant, right? This is the key. This is how I'm going to unlock this. This is how I'm going to become more comfortable with interviewing, right? And I thought, you know what? This is what we should be doing in our workplaces all the time. And so that's how I started to teach my clients how to do the same thing, like going through every level of the job description and really creating the stories that align to that. Not looking at every level of the job description and then rewriting my resume to align with that. Because really, yes, your resume can get you in the door, but it's the stories you tell that will keep you there. So these are the three type of stories that every leader, every new leader, every aspiring leader, and remember, everyone is a leader if they choose to, you should know how to tell. When you know how to tell these type of stories, your influence as a leader is going to create such expanded impact that the stories that you tell will be told in your absence, and it will be told in the same way, which is an important element of storytelling. If it cannot be repeated and it cannot move far, it isn't a really good story. This is important because sometimes you are a leader that is in charge of a large team or an entire enterprise, and you are not going to physically be able to communicate the stories directly to every single person. You may be able to communicate it to your leadership team, but your leadership team has to communicate it to their leadership team. And you want to ensure that the stories that you are telling get communicating with the same level of inspiration, intensity, hope that you have communicated it. So it has to be simple. So knowing what stories to tell and how to tell those stories is going to set you apart, and it's going to help you move through the organization. Like energetically, you are moving through the organization without you even being present all the time in every meeting and in every space, because people will remember your story. So let's talk through those three stories. So the first story is the identity story, and this is the story about who you are as a leader. This story is so freaking important because this type of story is tied to your brand and to your reputation. It's not just about your resume or the work that you have done, but it is about your values, about your principles, and the experiences that have shaped you as a leader. It's like when you walk into a new job or you join a new team, or even when you meet someone for the first time, they are going to want to know, who are you? Who is this person? Can I trust them? What do they stand for? This is where your identity story is important. This is going to be your opportunity to show people your leadership philosophy on how you make decisions and how you handle conflict and what drives you to leadership. Why did you want to be a leader anyway? When these things are told through stories, it helps people understand who you are at your core. So as an example, I worked with a leader who had just inherited a team, and he was bringing them together for this team formation session. And one of the things that he wanted to anchor to is being transparent about who he is, so that his team knew exactly how he approaches his work and how he makes decisions, and even what are the issues that keeps him up at night. So I worked with him to build a story for sharing that information, and we used something that he was interested in, which was football. So sports is always a very good metaphor or analogy for telling stories. So I definitely suggest, like, if you are a sports person, use sports to communicate your stories, okay? Because a metaphor, anything like that, is very helpful when talking about this specific story, which is the identity story. He compared his leadership style to a football team, and he says every player has to pull their weight and stay accountable, because what each person does affects everyone else. And then that way, no one gets too comfortable and the whole team can stay on track. His story really showed who he was as a leader, and it was also very easy to understand, especially to those who were also into sports. But even if you weren't into sports, you understood the concept of a team, which football or any team sport essentially is. But it gave his new team the clarity they needed to know what kind of leader he was going to be. But here is what I want you to remember. The identity story isn't just for you to tell. Like I said before, you have to be able to tell that story energetically even when you are not there, right? So it's about creating a narrative that others can share about you. So think about it. If someone had to describe you in a meeting that you weren't in, what would they say? Also, like, I talk a lot about sponsorships and getting a sponsor. If you have a sponsor and you want them to advocate for you, your identity story is going to be very helpful when they are being asked, well, tell me about TaSheena. Tell me who she is. When you've already shared this story, it really helps them communicate it as well. And it literally shapes how others will talk about you. So your identity story is the first story, and I say it's one of the probably the most important one out of all these three stories. The next story is the transformation story. Now, this is the story of how you've created results and how you've made an impact. Now, I will caution you that this is not just about listing your accomplishments. This is not just a bullet point of things that you've done. This is not just a resume of stuff that you've done. This is not a PowerPoint with a bunch of data and numbers on it. This is truly about sharing the process that you went through, the challenges that you overcame, and the outcomes in a way that is going to be compelling to others, but also inspiring. You want people to believe in what you are saying and to be moved to want to create those same results with you. This story is important because people need to see evidence of your leadership. Everybody, I mean, everybody, no matter who you are, wants to see the receipts. They want to know that you aren't just doing a bunch of talking, but that you are also walking the walk as well. You're doing what you say you're gonna do. You're gonna walk the talk. You're gonna walk what you're saying, right? Basically, they want to know you're doing that. And the way that you tell this story is by starting off with a challenge that you have faced. And I know you're probably thinking, TaSheena, why do I have to start off with the bad stuff? Everybody loves a good hero story. Okay? That's why you have to start off with the bad stuff. They love the story of the underdog and how they rose up to succeed. So challenges and how you have overcome them is where to begin in the transformation story. You're then going to explain the solutions and the actions you took. And then lastly, you're going to share the results. And this, my friend, has to be a measurable or a tangible result that someone can see or understand. And contrary to popular belief, everything, and I mean everything, is measurable. And you have full discretion for what that measurement looks like and how it is measured. So to share an example of this, I'm going to pull from my experience as a transformation coach. I was one of a dozen coaches who led large-scale transformation in a multi-billion corporation. And the company was doing amazing work, but there wasn't a lot of measurement that was happening. So what me and the coaches did was we looked at every layer of the organization and all the work that was happening and all the goals that was put in place. And we decided, okay, here are some measures that we could consider. First was meetings. We evaluated how many hours can be saved from not attending meetings. So we created a goal, and measurements come with a goal or something that you're trying to achieve. So they go together. But we thought about like, okay, what is something that we can put together and how many hours can be saved from not attending meetings? How can we cut down on meetings as a measurement? Another thing was like speed of decisions and how fast did a team go from brainstorming to execution? How many hours did it take, or how fast did product get to a customer? We did that. We even measured engagement by how many people actually showed up to volunteer events and actively participated. And this was on top of customer measurements, right? So when you measure things, it helps you follow the data and it helps you understand how you are actually transforming parts of the organization. The transformation story helps you to showcase your ability to create and facilitate change. And I'll just tell you, people remember transformation. I want you to even think about your own personal transformation. If you've had one, you may have had a couple. I know I have. That is something that you're never going to forget. And the people who have experienced that in you won't forget about it either. Okay? So I want you to think about a time when you saw a situation that needed changing and you turned it around. How can you share that story in a way that highlights your leadership skills and the impact that you have made? And then the third and final story is the future story. And this is where you are going to paint a vision of what's possible under your leadership. Possibility and hope are such elements of a story or a type of story that literally pull on the heartstrings, right? Because everyone likes possibility. And this is about inspiring people with where you're going and inviting them to be part of your journey. This story has the potential of being very powerful because it provides you the ability to create a lot of impact and invites people to be a part of what is coming in the future. I want you to know that leadership is not just about responding to what is happening right now, but it's creating visions for the future. And when you can clearly communicate that vision, you give people something to stand behind. Going back to my experience as a transformation coach, there was a team who was looking to create a new vision for the future. Okay. Literally, they called it a vision for the future. And we did an exercise that you may have heard before called Headlines of the Future. And this exercise basically asks you to think, if there was a headline that was on the cover of a national newspaper, what would it read that you accomplished? This literally helped the team to determine the headline, but get granular about what they did to create that result. So ultimately, the headline is the result that you created. So think about a result that you want to create. Sometimes we say that this is the mission you want to create, but it could also be the vision. And think about what that is, and that becomes the headline of the future. And when this is exciting, it's clear, people understand what it means, people are like, hell yeah, that's where I want to go. I want to go there too. Like, you want people to do that. And when you have people like that, you're going to bring some people along with you. This future story can literally set you apart. It can position you to be the leader that everyone wants to follow. And it positions you as a leader that has a plan. It shows that you're not just reacting to challenges, but you are thinking ahead and you are bringing other people along with you. So I want you to ask yourself, what's the story you are telling about the future? Or what's the story you're going to tell about your future? What does the world look like? How do they change? How does things happen just because you're in it? Just because you're the leader. And as long as it is clear, as long as it is inspiring, and as long as you can actually take action, people will definitely follow your lead. So to recap, every leader needs to master these 3 different types of stories. The identity story that shows you who you are and what you stand for. The transformation story, which highlights the results you've created and the impact you've made. And the future story, which paints a vision for where you're going, and it inspires people to follow you. So I want to leave you with this. Stories are not just for big presentations or for formal settings like a TED Talk. They are for everyday leadership moments. It helps you to introduce yourself to a new team. It helps you to share your ideas in a meeting. It even helps you when you are mentoring or being mentored by someone one-on-one. So my challenge to you is this. I want you to take some time to reflect on these 3 stories. I want you to write them down for yourself, write them out. I want you to practice telling them, because these 3 stories are going to be 3 of the major stories of your life when you think about your career, in relationship to your career. And I want you to go out there and test these stories out and talk to other people and share them as much and as often as you can. And yes, you're going to edit them. You're going to change them. You're going to shift them sometimes. But just remember that these 3 stories, the identity, the transformation, and the future stories are going to literally help position you uniquely away from everyone else. Is going to position you as someone different, someone with a plan, someone who's compelling, someone who's engaging and inspiring. And so I don't want you to skip out on becoming a storyteller. It is going to be the key to unlock your career. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Leadership Beyond the Title podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, hit like, follow, and leave a comment. Share with your friends, family members, and other women of color leaders. Inside my one-on-one leadership coaching program, I will help you become the leader that you want to be with work-life integration and peace. By tapping into networks, growing your visibility and confidence, you will go from untapped, unseen, and underrepresented to attracting opportunities to take your career and your life to the next level. I use an equity-centered lens in my approach so that you feel seen, safe, empowered, excited, and committed to attract, create, and land opportunities in an unconventional way. To work with me, join my email newsletter, or to learn more about me, click the links in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to being your coach. See you next week.